test, 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 test. 1, 2, test, test. All right, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gaming and Esports Career live stream. I will be your presenter for this evening. My name is John Williams, for those who don't know me. A little quick background about my company, Infinite Social Solutions. So what we do is we provide services to small businesses like web design, computer repair, computer training, resume writing, things of that nature. So if you're interested in any of those things or you want to check us out, all of the social media and website information is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. And if you should feel inclined to provide a cash donation, the Cash App is also streaming at the bottom as well too. But let's go ahead and get into what we are all here for. Some of you may be interested in getting into the gaming industry. Some of you may be just curious about the gaming industry. I do, and I also come across a lot of parents who have children who want to aspire to be professional gamers, and they just don't have the correct information to provide and the right path to follow for getting their kids into professional gaming. And I can understand there being a bit of concern because a lot of us are older. I know, including myself, I'm 42, so I come from an era where, video games were more or less in its infancy, and it was kind of a niche market. And a lot of our parents saw it as just a waste of time, just like watching TV and things of that nature. So they did not or could not see how one could, get a rewarding career in the gaming industry. All right. So now we are in 2023. Gaming is a global industry. So it's not just, specific markets that are creating games or have game companies and things of that nature. This is a global industry and one of the largest industries in the world right now. So there are a lot of different career paths you can choose to get into gaming. All right. So before we get into the meat and potatoes, again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. I will be monitoring the chats throughout the presentation. And, I'm not going to take up too much time. So it's a pretty good chance that if we do have a bunch of questions, that I should be able to get to those questions and answer all of those questions as we go along. All right. So when it comes to gaming and gaming industry, right? And esports, okay? Like I touched on before, is that people don't have enough information when it comes to gaming in the gaming industry, right? So again, if you're yourself or someone that is trying to become a professional gamer, right? One of the biggest concerns that people have as far as esports and professional gaming is that having something to fall back on or having some type of profession outside of just playing video games, right? Because when I get into the esports side of things, I'm going to explain how getting into esports more or less is parallel with those that are trying to get into the NFL. So people that are getting to the NFL, the problems that they run into, the issues that they run into, it is 99% the same, right? An NFL player, or I should say a football player who's trying to get into the NFL is going to run into the same type of roadblocks that someone that is getting into the gaming or professional gaming as a career, going to run into the same issues, right? So what I'm going to do is going to talk about that. But first, I'm going to talk about gaming professions, okay? And the different types of gaming professions there are. Now, most of the professions are nothing new. These professions are found in other industries. So these aren't new jobs. This isn't something that just happened to crop up, in the last decade or so. Like these professions have been around, they just are specific to gaming, right? So let me pull these up real quick, and I'm gonna show you a list of professions. And some of you that are watching may already work in these professions, right? And if you do, then the next step is to just find a game company to work for to continue doing the work that you already do. But here's the list here. So gaming professions. So these are 2023. These are the gaming professions. And you see here, you have game development, game design, game production. So those are given, right? Because you can't have a game without someone designing it, without someone actually developing it, and those type of things. Art, animation, audio, software engineer, IT, quality assurance, broadcast, talent, events, competitive, content and media, commercial, marketing, human resources, finance and legal, research, administrative, and education. So as you can see, when it comes to the gaming industry, there are a wide range of professions that are needed within this industry, right? And a lot of these that you've seen, people do elsewhere, right? Like audio, right? People really don't think about it, but it's always been around. Video games have music, they have sound. They need someone to create that sound, to create that music, right? So you may already know people that make beats and do music production and things like that, but you never think to that same thing does apply to gaming, right? To a video game, right? If you've ever beaten a video game and you look at the credits at the end of the game, you will see a lot of these job titles scrolling through the credits, and there are people working those job titles. So they're more than just individuals who actually like make the game, right? It's more than just the programmers. It's more than just the developers. You have people behind the scenes. You have the artists. You have the animators. You have the people that do the audio. You need someone to market the game, right? It's cool that you created a game, but how are you going to market it, right? So you need people that in marketing. Nowadays with social media, with content and media, again, you could be the greatest game designer in the world, have the best game, but how are you going to get that to the masses, right? So you need people that can create content, create media to help get your game out there, right? Now, let's just say your game blows up, right? And you are an independent game developer. You have a handful of people on your team, but the game blows up, right? Game blows up, making millions of dollars. You decide, hey, I want to open up a larger studio, right? Now, larger studio means more money, more resources, right? And you're going to need a larger team. So at this point, you're going to need to hire people, right? So who hires people for companies? They go through human resources, right? They do all the hiring, right? You need to buy a building. You need to get permits and things like that to expand, right? So you probably want to talk to a lawyer. So that would fall under finance and legal. There are lawyers out there who specialize in the gaming industry and cater to the needs of the gaming industry, right? So now that you're this big developer, you've got a building, you've hired people, you need people that just need to run the day-to-day tasks of your company, right? So that's where administrative comes in, right? You need people to do the paperwork. You need people to answer emails, all sorts of things. You need someone to work the front desk of your building when people come in. Things like that. So these professions already exist, but people often overlook that they are basically the same things, but just in the gaming industry. Okay. So the gaming, again, is not just making video games. It's not just playing video games. There are a lot of things. It's a business. They need these professions in this business. Okay. So this is a list. If anyone is interested, please let me know in the chat. I can send you a copy of these professions. Yeah. But if you have any questions, please feel free to post your questions in the chat. All right. So now what I'm going to get into is we're going to talk about how to break into the industry, right? Now, when I start going over some of these steps, some of you who work in certain industries, especially like in music, in movies, a lot of this is going to sound familiar because it essentially applies to many other industries, not just gaming. Okay, there are some specific steps to take that apply to gaming, but overall, you can take most of these steps and apply it to just about any industry that's out there, right? All right. So when you are really getting into anything, right, you want to find out what your passion is, right? Okay. So in the gaming industry, you want to find out what your passion is. So one of the best examples or that I use is we're going to step into the shoes of an artist, right? So I draw, I'm an artist, right? I draw characters, I do character concepts, I draw, landscapes, I create worlds, right? I'm an artist, right? And that's really what I want to do. And I want to have my work featured in games, right? So know what it is what I want to do. I have a goal. I'm an artist. I want to create characters for video games. I want to create worlds within video games, right? So I have a goal. All right. I'm an artist. I'm here. I want to get from point A to point B, right? So how do I do that, right? So as an artist, one of the most important things you want to do is, your art may be great, right? It may be you may be one of the greatest artists to ever live, right? But no one's going to take notice if they don't know who you are, right? So one of the things that you want to do is create an online presence. You want to set yourself up a website to feature your art, but you also want to be active on social media as well, and so that your art can be easily seen by other people, right? Because it's cool to have a website, but the hard part is driving people to your website, right? So that's where social media comes in, because in social media, you're there, you may be joining different groups on Facebook. You may find other artists on Twitch and things of that nature, right? So you want to interact with people, exchange information, show your art, look at someone else's art, and you kind of build a community basically on social media to help get your name out there, right? All it takes is just one person. You find the right person that likes your art, and they may know somebody, and pass it along to one of those big developers. Say, hey, this person here, they do pretty good work. Maybe we should, bring them in for an interview and see if they can help us out. And that's how things work out sometimes, right? But again, that's not going to happen if you don't put your name out there, right? And by not only, so increasing your online presence is one thing, but you also want to network outside of social media as well too. So one of the biggest things, and this is something that I've done throughout the years, is that I network, right? So what I do is I'll go to industry events. I'll even go to events outside of the industry, right? But I go to different events, different functions, parties, fundraisers, and things like that, and get to talking to people and getting to meeting people and getting to know people, right? Because you don't know who knows who, right? I'll give a perfect example. I volunteer for robotics competitions for high school and middle school students, specifically through the Baltimore Robotics Center, right? So a lot of people that mentor and volunteer within that space tend to be people who work in IT. Well, it just so happens that a person that I met who's really into robotics, has their own uh, robotics nonprofit, but just so happens that their husband is one of the executives for a big game developer here in Maryland, right? So, but I'm I got out and networked and met these people in a space that is more or less adjacent to gaming, but not gaming specific. So we weren't there for gaming. We were at this event for robotics, but it just so happens that they are also in the game industry, right? So we build this rapport. You know, we see each other at several different events, so we become comfortable. We become friends, right? We become what's the word I'm looking for? Associates, right? So now that I know this, and I can now build a rapport with these people enough where, you know, I can ask them like, hey, you know, are you guys looking to hire anyone? What specific job roles are you looking for? And I can keep an eye out because I might know somebody that may be able to apply for that job and fill that spot. So now, because of my networking, I have an in to the industry where if I was just sitting at home, it would have never happened, right? So that's why networking is an essential part of basically getting into any industry, right? Because you never know who you'll meet, who you'll encounter at these events and things like that. So, you know, online presence, networking, for me, those are key. Those are key, right? So, next thing is education, right? So, okay, I'm an artist. I can draw. Cool, right? However, um, being an artist can be difficult, right? So, um, with most professions, um, like art and music and things like that, um, it's hard or it's difficult to make that a full time gig. There are a lot of artists. There are tons of artists out there, but very few are able to do what they do full time, right? Some artists go the route of opening a studio. Some may create a clothing line. Some may have an in somewhere with like a publisher or something where they, you know, they do covers or something like that. A lot of artists go and sell their artwork, right? And there are tons and tons of artists out there, but there are very few who are able to do it full time, right? So what you want to do is have some type of fallback, and then that's where the education piece comes into, right? Um, because you know, with that degree, with that backup plan, you can do other things, right? So you may be an artist. You may be having a hard time for whatever reason, you know, selling your art, trying to make it full time, right? With that education, you know, with the educational aspect, you may end up, you know, falling into a space where you actually become an art teacher, teaching art, whether it be in a school. You could start your own channel, you know, teaching art and drawing online and things of that nature, right? But education is very important. Education will help you develop in your path to what it is your end goal is in your profession, right? Because I've seen a lot of people who are good at what they do, but hit a roadblock because they haven't added the educational piece to their repertoire, right? Like I work in IT. Um, I did not when I left high school because I took, you know, computer repair in high school. I could not just take what I learned in high school and use that as just the basis of my career, right? I couldn't just take that knowledge, right, of those 3 or 4 years and use that to carry me through the 20 plus years that I worked IT. I was always constantly learning something. There was always a certification to get. There was new languages, new codes, new languages, new new hardware that I had to learn, new software that I had to learn. So the education never stopped. And as long as I keep up with the latest and greatest, it'll be hard for me to fall behind, and I'll be able to still maintain a job, right? Because computer repair in 1998, though similar, the hardware has changed dramatically, the software has changed dramatically. So I'm not, if I was an expert in Windows 98 and I never took the time to learn any other version of Windows, I'm gonna have a hard time doing anything in 2023, right? Because things are different. But again, education, continuing education, is very key, is vital, is important when trying to break into the gaming industry, because you want to be able to keep up with all the new technologies and things that are going on within the gaming industry. Just lost my screen here. All right. And adjacent to education, developing your skills, right? So as an artist, I shouldn't, but I should never stop drawing, right? Because every time I put pen to pad, you know, I'm gonna get better and better as time goes on. A lot of artists who that I've seen work from, you know, years ago looks completely different from what their art looks like now, because they grew as an artist. You know, they developed their skills, they got better, and you can see that progression through their artwork. So no matter what you do, no matter what industry you're in, not just art, but no matter what you do, you always want to continue to develop your skills and make your skills relevant for the time. All right. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. I'll answer as many questions as I can as we're moving along here. We're actually making great time. Let's see, check the chat. All right, so those are just a few tips for breaking into the gaming industry. I mean, it's not rocket science. Like I said, everything that I just listed with the you know, identifying your passion, networking, online presence, developing your skills, education, those tips can be used in every profession. Okay. Now, the difficult, what I think is the most difficult thing, and a lot of people in a lot of industries have this issue, is gaining experience, especially if you're fresh out of college, right? You go to apply for a job, and what happens, right? One of the requirements is they need you to have X amount of years of experience, right? Now, if you're a college student and you have been in college for 4+ years, you know, and you know you've been paying your own tuition, so you're probably working part-time somewhere, and you never actually had the opportunity to work anywhere in your profession. You know, a lot of people who went to college didn't. So once you graduate, you know, what are you going to do with that degree if you can't get a job, right? And it can be frustrating. It can make the job search difficult because a lot of industries really don't have entry-level jobs. Gaming industry really doesn't, especially if you're in the actual if you're on the actual development team, because they just don't have time and money to coach somebody up, right? Because when it comes to a video game, we're making this game. We have a deadline. We need you to know what you're doing, because if you don't, you could slow the team down. You could slow this development cycle down. We may not be able to hit goal, and if we don't hit goal, people get fired. Money is lost. So when it comes to, like, if you're trying to be a part of the development team, that's where the difficulty comes in, and that's why you need the experience, right? So one thing you can do is, like, while you're in school, you know, you can try to find some internships, right? The other thing too is if you plan on, if you want to work for a developer, okay, you find a game developer that you want to work for, but you can't get on a development team, right? They have, like I showed in the graphic earlier, there are other avenues that you can take to get your foot in the door, right? I work IT, and people ask me all the time, like, what's a good entry level job to get into the IT field? And I always tell everybody, help desk or service desk, right? They will coach you up as long as you know something. Well, it really depends on what what company you go to work for. But some companies really don't care what your knowledge is. You're just a body on a phone, just answering the phone. But the companies that I've worked for, you actually have to have a good background, good knowledge in IT, even if it's not your profession, right? You need to at least know how to turn on a computer, right? Because on most help desks, when you do get a call, you're working on a level 1 help desk. So people are calling in for easy stuff like, how do I turn my computer on, or what website do I go to find this, right? Some very basic questions that they ask for most IT websites. So that's a good way to getting your foot in the door, getting familiar with that company, and then trying to again, within that company, you can network with people that are on the development team, and they can give you some tips, give you some pointers. A lot of those people, a lot of people that I've met in the industry that are on these big development teams that are making these AAA games, they have side projects that they work on. So you may be able to work on a side project with one of the people that you meet and actually show them your skills, and they can also coach you up too. And then eventually, at some point, they may recommend you to be on the development team, and that's your way up. That's your foot in the door. But it is several different ways of going about it. But being that gaming is computers, and kind of like IT field, getting in can be difficult. Like finding a job, once you think you're ready, finding a job can be difficult. And I'm sorry if touching my nose too much, but my mustache is growing and it's tickling the bottom of my nose, so I'm trying to keep that down. So if you're getting annoyed by that, I'm sorry. My mustache is annoying me as well too, so I think I need to get a cut here soon. But again, if there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But yeah, so again, I'll go over real quick. The list here is: identify your passion, network, online presence, gain experience, develop your skills, attend events and things like that. These are just some tips of getting your foot in the door, whether you want to work in the gaming industry, or if you want to be a professional gamer. But that's just some tips to use to get your foot in the door. So next, this isn't going to take too much time. Next, I'm going to dive into eSports and becoming a professional gamer. All right. So I've talked to several parents in the past, because this isn't the first time I've done a presentation on this. And they say they have a child who wants to be a professional gamer. All right, cool. I'm not gonna knock anybody's dream. Like, if that's their dream, I'm not gonna knock it. There are plenty of people out here that want to be professional football players, basketball players, things of that nature. Just an athlete in a sport. But always my biggest concern, the parents' biggest concern, comes down to the educational piece, right? So the educational piece you should be fine with that now, because I just, I showed you a list of professions that you can actually use in or is needed by the gaming industry, right? So when it comes to esports, you want to have a fallback, right? And that education is your fallback. So you want to have some type of degree, certification, or something to fall back on if the esports thing doesn't work out, or if you do end up becoming a professional, and down the line, you get older, and I'll go over that. As you get older, your skills start to diminish, and suddenly you're not good enough anymore. So you are going to have to find a job after the fact, right? But I'll go into that in a bit more detail here, right? So when it comes to being a professional gamer, right? Like I said earlier in the presentation, it is the same path or similar path as to becoming a NFL player. And what I mean by that is only, again, the NFL is a small percentage of people who have strived and aspired to become a professional football player. Small percentage. Same thing applies to professional gaming. Okay. There's even actually, when it comes to professional gaming, there is an even smaller percentage of professional gamers out there compared to the number of people that actually want to become professional gamers, right? So you probably have a better chance of becoming an NFL player than you do a professional gamer, right? As weird as that seems, right? But the reason being is because, being that gaming is a global, professional gaming is a global sport. You have millions upon millions of people trying to be that top 100 and that top 200, right? So you can see how competitive that field can get. And with millions of people, trying to be professional gamers, the likelihood of you of ever making money doing it is slim to none, right? There are a lot of professional gamers out here who actually make no money because they can't break into those top ranks where you're actually earning money, right? So keep that in mind. Like you can become a professional gamer at some point. You may become a professional gamer, but there's a likelihood that you're not going to make any money doing it. That's just the reality of the situation. The top guys are the top guys, and they stay the top guys for only a few years, and then they're done, and then somebody takes their place, right? But there are millions of people vying for that spot. All right. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. So now, going to talk about the path to take to becoming a professional gamer. Okay. So the most important thing to become a professional gamer is pick a game that you want to be your main game. Okay. So for this conversation, I'm going to use Fortnite as an example. Okay. So my game I pick is Fortnite. So that's the game that I want to become a professional in. I want to aspire to make money playing Fortnite. Okay. So Fortnite, fortunately, does have built in, they do almost daily tournaments. Okay. So before you even think or fathom becoming a professional gamer, you have to know and test how good you really are. Okay. The only way you're going to do that is you have to participate in tournaments. Okay. Because tournaments bring out some of the best talent. Okay. You have to go up against the best talent to find out how good you are. Right. Because once you find out how good or how bad you are, then the next step is to focus on getting better. And that's where practice comes into it. Okay. So you got your game. All right. You're out there, you're on Fortnite, participating in tournaments. You're, looking for local tournaments to test your might. See how good or how bad you really are. Right. And once you can gauge where you are, because you'll find out real quick whether you're good enough or not once you gauge where you are, then what you need to do is, step back. Okay, you say, hey, I've been in a few tournaments. I haven't been able to make it to the top 10. All right, got to look at what you're doing wrong. Look at how you can improve. One way you do that is practice, right? So professional gamers, on average, they practice whatever game that they're playing. They practice on average of 40 plus hours per week. Okay? All right? That's not an exaggeration. I'll repeat. They practice 40 plus hours per week. What else is 40 hours? A full-time job, right? So they're working or practicing that game 40 hours a week because they're a professional gamer. This game is their job. They really don't have time for anything other than playing this game and doing what they need to do to survive. Okay. Unfortunately, for professional gamers, doing this 40 plus hours a week, you really don't have time to work a full-time job because the gaming is your full-time job. So what ends up happening is, in a lot of cases, is especially with team games. So what I've found, what I've seen and researched is that a lot of the professional gamers, they all live together, right? So if you have a squad of 4 for Fortnite, right? Your squad, to cut expenses, everybody's living together. Okay, everybody's living together. You're playing in tournaments for cash. That cash is going straight to expenses. Okay, because you're trying to you and your team are building up to go to those larger tournaments to win that big prize money, right? But they're also doing other things part-time to help cover expenses, because again, they're not doing this. They're having fun doing this, right? But this is their profession. Unfortunately, their profession doesn't pay outright, so they have to sacrifice a lot to get to where they want to go, right? Now, some teams get lucky and are able to find sponsors. Again, some of these sponsors aren't giving you a ton of money where you can just live off the sponsorship and be able to do other things. No, they're finding other ways and other avenues of getting money by, one, cutting expenses by all living together, and doing odd jobs or doing like small money tournaments to cover expenses, right? Because the gaming is the full-time job. But again, the gaming does not pay outright. So keep that in mind. Okay. So now that you've picked your game, you're playing in tournaments, you're finding out where you are as a player, you're sitting down practicing, right? One of the most important things is your gear, right? So it's one thing to aspire to be a professional gamer, but you also have to have the gear of a professional gamer, right? So, and what I mean by gear is, like, let's say you play PC, you need a good computer that isn't going to die on you anytime soon, because one, you don't have the money. All right, you don't have the money to constantly replace computers, so you want to get a good gaming system, but you also want to have a good monitor, a good chair, mouse, keyboard, things of that nature, right? Your gear has to be good, because the better your gear, the slightly better advantage you're going to have over your opponents in whatever game you choose, right? Because if you have a rinky-dink computer, and of course, a lot of these games are being played online, if your computer is not up to speed and constantly crashing and things like that, the tournament organizers, they don't care if your computer crashes during the tournament, because that's not their problem, right? That's not their equipment. It's your equipment. So if you're joining tournaments and you can't finish a match because your computer is crashing or your computer's slow, that's on you, right? That's on you. So that's why your gear, it doesn't have to be top of the line. Now, if you can afford top of the line, that's fine. But your gear at least has to be adequate enough for you to be competitive, right? So, because it's no point of being um, a professional gamer if you aren't in a place where you can be competitive. Because if you can't be competitive, then what's the point? You'll never make any money, and you're just wasting your time, right? So keep that in mind. But there, same thing with if you're playing on console. Console, you're least likely, so unless you're playing, I guess, like if you're playing something like Call of Duty or something like that, even your console, make sure your console is clean and ready to go, right? Because again, you don't want that thing to overheat and crash on you, and you're out of the tournament, right? Again, if you can't compete, you can't make money. If you can't make money, then you're wasting your time as a professional gamer. Okay. All right. Again, any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to put them into the chat. All right. So with that being said, now that you've decided to be a professional gamer, you've entered some tournaments, you know how much work you have to put in. The next thing to do is to get your name out there, right? So when you enter these tournaments, you're only interacting with a limited number of people, right? So you join a tournament of 20 people, you're only interacting with these 20 people. So what you need to do then is, work on getting your name out there. Your online presence, okay? Especially for professional gaming, because since gaming, these tournaments, majority of tournaments are held online. People in the gaming, in professional gaming, are constantly online, right? That's their life. Online is their life. So you want to meet them where they're at, right? So you want to meet these teams. You want to meet these individuals who are making money. You want to learn from them, find out how they were able to break into professional gaming, right? The most common story is they won a big tournament, and that's how they got in, right? So if you're good enough, you'll get in, right? But yes, you want to go to Discord, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, website forums, things of that nature, to find out where other competitors are and compete against them, learn from them, grow, and just try to become the best player that you can be. Okay. And it's really that simple. As far as like the steps aren't anything too out of the ordinary, right? Like I said, the same process, the same path that you would take to become an NFL player is the same or similar to becoming a professional gamer. Okay. Now, with that being said, to make things a lot easier, okay, and to kill two birds with one stone. So let's say now I'll say this: I am a huge app now. It's very rare that you find someone that's so good at a game that they can bypass a lot of things in life and become that professional. Okay. I'll use LeBron James as an example. Okay. LeBron James came out of high school. He was that good. He did not go to college. He came out of high school and went right into playing for the NBA, right? How many LeBron James are there? Very few. Very few. Like he's an anomaly, right? He's a once in a lifetime, once in a generation talent, right? Or they call it generational talent, right? There may be a long time before we see another LeBron James. A long time, right? Same thing applies to eSports, right? You are going to have those individuals who are that good where they can just bypass everything that I just talked about and make it to the big leagues in no time, right? But that's not going to be the case for a vast majority of individuals, right? So you're going to really need to think about life after esports. Okay, you're going to really need to think about, all right, I tried, I couldn't make it. What do I do now? Okay, so if you did have aspirations of going to college and getting a degree, a lot of the larger universities and some of the small universities too actually offer um, esports um, curriculum, and a lot of professions that I showed um, in the graphic earlier, they do actually provide diplomas and certifications for those specific for those professions with a focus on esports. So you can still go to school and and pursue your education and do your esports as an extracurricular activity. Okay, a lot of colleges offer or have esports programs for individuals that want to again break into the gaming industry or hopefully become a professional gamer. Right. So all of the major colleges in Maryland offer these things. So if you go, you can go to Loyola, University of Maryland, Coppin, Morgan State. You know, just do a Google search for the college and then esports, and it'll take you to the esports page, and you'll find out all that information. So you can still pursue your career as a professional gamer. And if it doesn't work out, you know, by being in the esports program, you have your foot in the door as far as like gaming, right? Now, that's for those who decide to go to college, which you know, I if you can if you can afford it, that is probably the best thing to do. Simply because you know you're killing two birds with one stone. You know, you have this goal of being a professional gamer, but you're also getting your education and hopefully leaving with some type of certification or diploma when it's all said and done with that school, right? Something you can easily find a job and get into, right? So, but that's a very, very important piece. Okay. But again, it's becoming a professional gamer. The steps are simple, but and the steps are simple. However, the dedication and time that you have to put in is what is going to be difficult. And you're also going to have to remember there is I'm gonna say a 99% chance that you aren't gonna make any money along the way. There's a 99% chance that you aren't gonna make any money from beginning to end. That's just the reality of the situation. That is, you can look it up. Most professional gamers don't make any money, okay? But they keep trying, they keep pushing, right? And also um, forgot to even mention this. As a professional gamer, the average career at most is 5 years, right? And that 5 years is in your late teens to your early to mid 20s. Okay, within some 5 years within there, I'll say from 16 to 26, right? Somewhere in there, if you do end up making it far, you've got a 5 year window of where you're gonna peak. And the reason being is because as adults we get older, right? So that 16 to 26, where we're relatively young, our bodies are probably at our healthiest, right? Our reflexes, our motor skills are at their peak during this period, right? And as you get older, those things start to deteriorate, right? Your reflexes get slower, response time gets slower, right? You're going to age yourself out of being a competitor. Okay. So again, average between 16 and 26, you got about 5 good years in there. If you do make it, then you're going to be on your A game. Now, there are some people that are able to extend their careers, right? But it doesn't last too long, right? It does not last too long. So always keep that in mind. All right. With that being said, if there aren't any questions, I'm going to wrap things up here. And if you do have questions afterwards, you can still put them in the chat because the chat is as long as the videos are up, the chat's going to be active on the page. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and X, also known as Twitter. Or if you have any questions, all that information is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. So you'll know where actually it's not. Let me fix that. Because I've had this up. I did not transition. All right, there we go. There I am. So all the information is scrolling there in the bottom of the screen. If you should feel inclined to send a donation, you can. The Cash App is at the bottom. But if there are no more questions, I'm going to bring the stream to an end. Everybody have a great evening, and I will see you next time.